When we cite the sources we've used to write a paper, we demonstrate several core values of academic research. We act ethically by acknowledging our debt to other scholars, and we build trust by offering readers information they can use to check our work. Introducing AI programs like ChatGPT and Microsoft Copilot into the academic research and writing process challenges these principles. AI chatbots aren't people, so we don't have the same ethical obligations towards them that we observe when citing other human scholars. And chatbots don't typically generate the same text or images twice, even when they're given the same prompt. So it isn't possible to show readers how to check your sources. So how do we use AI with integrity when producing scholarly work? And when we make AI a part of our research and writing process, how do we acknowledge its use in a way that earns the trust of our readers? I'm Ryan Wepler, Director of Yale's Graduate Writing Lab. In this video, I'll discuss principles for using AI honestly and transparently when conducting academic research. And I'll offer models for showing your readers how you have used AI in your work. Before I begin, I'll acknowledge that there isn't full agreement on the ethics and best practices of using AI for research and writing. The sudden explosion of AI tools has reshaped how we research and how we write. And we're still figuring out what that means for attributing the ideas in our writing, acknowledging our collaborators, and signaling authorship of our language. I'll draw on articles and the guidelines of academic publishers to sketch the emerging consensus. But the consensus has shifted since ChatGPT came online in November 2022, and it's likely to be further revised as our use of AI tools continues to grow. While this presentation summarizes today's best practices for using AI with integrity in academic research and writing, you should consider these guidelines provisional. This video has 3 sections. In the first, I'll discuss AI tools in light of the core academic values I explored in the first video in this series. In the next section, I'll draw on the guidelines of academic journals to offer 4 principles for writing with AI. And in the final section, I'll present models for citing AI across a wide range of tools and use cases. While I'll cover the ethics of researching and writing with AI, I won't be discussing ethical issues related to how AI chatbots work, their tendency towards bias, how they use the text you input, the possibility that they may plagiarize from other writers, or the risk that they may invent information. These are all risks you should be aware of and are responsible for when you use AI for your research and writing. In the first video in this series, I discussed 3 core values that underlie university guidelines for academic integrity. The first is that individuals own their ideas and their words. For this reason, using another person's ideas or words without citing them is considered stealing from them. The second core value is that your work must accurately represent what you did and what you found. Giving the impression that you had ideas you didn't have or wrote words you didn't write is fraud. The final core value is that a university's primary responsibility is supporting your learning. Universities' principles in academic integrity tend to reinforce the principle that you learn by doing your own work. Let's consider how these ideas apply to using generative AI in academic work. If I take language or an idea generated by an AI chatbot and copy it into my paper, is that academic theft? The consensus belief holds that AI chatbots are not people. As a result, they cannot own ideas or language, even if those ideas or language originate from them. Since they're not people, they cannot be stolen from. Therefore, copying language or ideas from an AI chatbot cannot be academic theft. If I copy language or an idea generated by an AI chatbot into my paper, does that count as academic fraud? Even though copying AI-generated text is not theft, you are still responsible for making it clear to your reader where the ideas in your paper came from. If your paper makes it appear that language or an idea generated by an AI chatbot originated from you, you have violated the trust of your reader and committed academic fraud. I think we all understand that using AI tools to complete academic work can rob you of an opportunity to gain skills you develop doing the work on your own. At the same time, using AI tools to solve problems, seek feedback, and work more efficiently can be valuable skills in themselves. This is why Yale has chosen to let professors set their own AI policies. When using AI to complete an assignment advances a professor's learning goal, it is allowed. Professors limit the use of AI when it doesn't support their learning goals. In these cases, using AI in ways that are disallowed by your professor undermines your learning. When thinking about AI tools, it's easy to focus on the product, on the ways they can make your paper better. But for a university, the papers you write aren't the product. You are. Universities exist to produce skilled learners ready to make an impact on their field when they graduate. And universities' AI policies tend to reinforce this goal. Given the potential for academic fraud and possible negative impacts on learning, is it wrong to use AI for academic research? As we've discussed, professors set their own policies on when and how you can use AI when completing coursework. But what about using AI for published research? Unlike universities, journals do consider papers written by scholars their primary product. Journals want to publish clear, polished research that impacts their field. And they typically allow and even encourage scholars to use AI tools that further that goal. As we'll see, most journals have guidelines outlining when and how AI may be used, but very few ban its use entirely. As of May 2023, only 4 of the top 100 science journals explicitly prohibit the use of AI in generating a manuscript. Some journals have even made AI tools available to contributors in the editing process. The journals American Literary History and Science and Public Policy, and others, for example, encourage authors to run their paper through an AI-driven tool that performs academically tailored grammar and language checks before submission. We've established that you can use AI for coursework when your professor allows it. And when publishing your research, you can use it in accordance with the guidelines of your target journal. So, what are those guidelines? A recent article found a lack of standardization and substantial heterogeneity among top science journals regarding when AI use is allowed and how it should be cited. So the issue isn't entirely settled. Though AI guidance may differ in its details, there are some core principles that are common to most publishers' AI policies. The first principle is that an AI chatbot cannot be an author of a paper. Here we see this reflected in quotes from the American Psychological Association, the Modern Language Association, the journal Science, and the World Association of Medical Editors. Journals offer a variety of reasons that chatbots should not be treated as authors, but most of them have to do with accountability. Only human beings can be accountable for things that authors are accountable for, which include the correctness of content, consent to be published, and managing conflicts of interest. The second principle is that human authors are responsible for all of the content in their paper, even content generated by AI. AI makes mistakes. It invents information. It lacks nuance. It makes up sources. It reflects the many biases in its training data. You may transfer the work of writing your paper to an AI tool, but you cannot transfer your responsibility for its quality. So fact check and edit carefully. The moment they end up in your writing, AI errors become your errors. Publishers and universities are unanimous in requiring transparency about when and how AI tools have been used in the research and writing process. You are responsible for citing the specific contributions AI tools have made to your paper, including differentiating the content you produced from the content created with the help of AI. Carefully document all uses of AI as you write, so you can cite them clearly and accurately before you submit. It's most important to retain the prompts you submitted to the AI tools, but having access to the full transcripts will allow you to check the accuracy of your work. To review, let's look at how the first 3 principles come together in the Committee on Publication Ethics' position statement on authorship and AI tools. The first 2 paragraphs explain why AI tools cannot be listed as authors in a scholarly publication. Quote, AI tools cannot meet the requirements for authorship, as they cannot take responsibility for the submitted work. As non-legal entities, they cannot assert the presence or absence of conflicts of interest, nor manage copyright and license agreements. The statement then shifts to Principle 3, responsibility for acknowledging the use of AI. Authors who use AI tools in the writing of a manuscript, production of images, or graphical elements of a paper, or in the collection and analysis of data, must be transparent in disclosing in the materials and methods or similar section of the paper how the AI tool was used and which tool was used. The statement concludes by asserting the writer's responsibility for what their paper says. Authors are fully responsible for the content of their manuscript, even those parts produced by an AI tool, and are thus liable for any breach of publication ethics. So we know that AI tools can't be credited as authors, that they aren't responsible for errors that make it into your paper, and that their use must be acknowledged or cited. But does every use of AI need to be cited? What if you only used AI to find sources, for formatting help, or for a last-minute grammar check? You must cite AI tools when the content they generate substantially affects the authorship of your paper or a specific passage in it. So how substantial is substantial? Any contribution from AI that influenced the ideas, the language, the organization, or the methodology of your paper has affected its authorship. If you wrote something differently than you would have without AI, then the AI tool needs to be cited. AI tools used to make the writing process more efficient, tools that speed up processes you could have done without AI, don't typically affect the authorship of a paper. These include using AI tools to find or summarize sources, AI used for formatting or managing your reference list, or spelling and grammar checking tools. These uses of AI tools often don't need to be cited. That said, expectations for citing AI tools vary widely. So you'll want to make sure you follow the guidelines of the publisher or your instructor. And because the consequences of not citing are more significant than the consequences of oversighting, you'll want to err on the side of transparency. If you aren't sure whether you need to cite an AI tool, cite it. We've established that you must cite any use of AI that affects the authorship of your paper. Now imagine you're writing a paper and you've determined that an AI tool has influenced what you've written. You know that you need to cite the AI tool, but how do you cite it? This leads us to our fourth and final principle. Give your readers as much detail as possible to understand what you did to generate the outputs from the AI tool. While you won't be able to guide them to an exact copy of your source material, as you could with a primary or secondary source, any written acknowledgement should state what AI tool you used, the name of the tool, what version, and the date you used it, what you used the tool for, every prompt you entered exactly as you wrote it into the chatbot, and what you did with the AI-generated content. Being as transparent as possible with your readers about what, how, and why you used AI tools in your research and writing not only ensures academic integrity. A high level of transparency about how you used AI assures your readers they can trust your results. The most important principle is to follow the instructions of your instructor or publisher. To promote trust, some journals request original transcripts of AI-generated content that served as sources for your paper. Some, like the American Psychological Association, even require it. And some journals suggest disclosing to the editors that AI was not used in the research and writing process. Many journals offer guidance on where AI acknowledgments should appear. Some ask that they be placed in existing sections of the manuscript, like the methods or acknowledgments. Others ask you to create a separate section entirely devoted to documenting AI use. And some journals even offer models for what AI disclosures should look like. But most journals aren't so detailed in their guidance on how to cite AI tools. In the absence of clear guidance, the procedure for citing an AI tool will depend on how you used it. AI tools have a wide variety of uses in academic research and writing. They can make it easier to find sources or manage your citations. They can generate language, images, or a structure for your paper. They can analyze data, produce a hypothesis, and help you design experiments. And they can provide feedback, editing, and formatting help. In this final section, I'll offer models for citing AI tools for each of these four purposes. As we've discussed, citations for AI tools should identify the tool you used, the purpose you used it for, all the prompts you entered, and what you did with the output. There are no universal guidelines for what an AI citation should look like, but drawing on the consensus recommendations from publishers, here's a template you might follow. I used, name the AI tool and include a link. 2, then give a succinct description of what you used it for. On, state the date you used the tool. I entered the prompts, then list the prompts, including the follow-up prompts. I used the output of these prompts to, then describe what the outputs from the AI tool contributed to your paper. If you significantly revise the output from the AI before incorporating it into your paper, you might say, I did X to the output of these prompts, instead of just stating that you used them. Let's consider what citations using this template might look like across a range of AI use cases. Here are 2 model citations for AI tools that were used during the research process, when the writer was finding and reading potential sources. Each is brief but specific and gives a clear picture of what the writer did with the AI tool and how they used the output. AI tools that help you during the research process typically don't require citations. AI tools used to find sources, summarize their argument, or format references mostly speed up tasks you could do without AI. For this reason, they often aren't thought to substantially affect authorship of the paper. Still, it's always best to err on the side of transparency. So if you're unsure if you need to cite the AI tool, you should cite it. If you do decide to acknowledge the use of AI during the research process, where should that acknowledgement appear in your paper? Since they're related to the writer's use of sources, it makes sense to place an acknowledgement that you used AI in the research process near your reference list, either at the beginning of the list or in a footnote on the first page. Now let's consider cases where you used AI to generate text. This might include drafting a section of your paper, generating an image, supplying information you want to include, or suggesting a structure for your argument. These scenarios are unique in two ways. They often only affect a section of your paper rather than the argument as a whole, and they involve the most direct copying of AI's outputs into your work. The first thing to be clear about is that you may not copy any AI-generated language into your paper without indicating where that language came from. Leading your reader to believe that you wrote words you did not actually write is academic fraud. How then do you cite text generated by an AI chatbot? You cite it pretty much the same way you'd cite text from a traditional primary or secondary source, by quoting the exact language of the output, or by paraphrasing it in your own words. In this example of MLA format, the quotation from ChatGPT is introduced and cited parenthetically, just as more traditional sources are. And as with other sources, the in-text citation refers readers to a more detailed entry in the list of works cited that includes the prompt and date of access. Summary works the same way. As you can see, the conventions of APA format are quite different from MLA, but the mechanics of citing are identical. A parenthetical citation to clarify which material came from the chatbot, and a more detailed entry in the reference list. Captioning an image follows a similar process. It includes the prompt that generated the image and a parenthetical citation that refers readers to a list of references for more detail. Not all uses of AI to generate text are local ones that can be cited in the body of your paper. You might, for example, ask a chatbot to suggest a structure for your argument. In a case like this, you would generate an AI acknowledgement like this one that could appear in the methods section, a footnote on page 1, or in the acknowledgements. You might also note that this example models how to include a follow-up prompt submitted to a chatbot. One convention of citing AI content that differs from citing traditional human writers is how much agency you attribute to the source. While we would write, "Plato argues," or "Shakespeare says," it doesn't make sense to ascribe this kind of intent to an algorithm. When you lead into a quotation or a summary from a chatbot, it makes more sense to reference what is happening in the text rather than what the chatbot is doing. Let's turn now to uses of AI that help generate the ideas in your paper. These can include data analysis, machine learning, hypothesis generation, or experiment design. In each of these examples, the AI tool shaped how the writer carried out their research. For this reason, descriptions of AI's role in generating the ideas of a paper typically appear in the methods section. A final use of AI in the research and writing process comes after you've completed a draft of your paper. Once you have a draft, AI tools can help you with editing and formatting. You can even ask them for feedback on specific elements of writing and argumentation. As you can see from the quotes on my right, there's some disagreement on whether you need to disclose the use of AI to prepare a manuscript. The American Psychological Association requires you to acknowledge when you've used AI for editing and formatting, while the American Medical Association and Journal of Neuroscience Methods do not. If you're using AI as you would a traditional grammar checker or editing tool like Grammarly, most publishers agree that you do not need to cite it. If you've used it for a more substantial purpose, it's more likely that the tool has affected authorship of the paper in a way that requires citation. Here are two models for acknowledging the use of AI tools to prepare a manuscript for submission. These would likely appear in a footnote on the first page or in an acknowledgments section at the end. Both acknowledgments include a link to a draft of the manuscript that was submitted to the AI tool for feedback. And the second includes a link to the edited output from the AI tool as well. This video has covered a lot of ground, from how AI tools challenge our academic values, to principles for using them fairly, to models for acknowledging their use. Throughout, I've grounded my advice in the guidelines of academic publishers. As we've seen, this is all very new, and conventions for citing AI tools are still taking shape. When citing AI tools, try to follow the guidelines of your professor or publisher, but don't obsess over them. After all, professors and publishers are figuring this stuff out just like you are. Issues of formatting are minor and easily corrected, but misleading your reader, intentionally or unintentionally, about how AI has shaped your work violates professional ethics. Make a good faith effort to be transparent about how you have used AI in your research and writing, and you'll make clear that you are an honest and careful scholar whose ideas are worthy of being taken seriously.